Welcome to another episode of Monday Sparks. I am your host, Matthew F. Stevens. I appreciate you joining me. Today is going to look a little bit different. In a lot of my podcasts, I talk about the trauma that I've experienced, and I talk about how that has impacted me, because that is the area that I am expert on, right? But recently I've had a situation in my life, and I want to share because I feel like a lot of growth can come from this situation. So if you want to hear some nitty gritty, dirty about me, well, you're about to get it. You want to hear some of my flaws? You're about to hear them. And I don't take that lightly, but I also want to make it clear that as much as I like to consider myself emotionally intelligent, which I am also a human being, which means I am flawed, which means I have things I have to work on. I have things I have to continuously grow on. And really, that's what makes me human. So something happened recently, and I just want to kind of give you the background. I want to kind of give you the backstory of what took place, how it all went down, and really how it helped me to develop as a human being, as a man, but more importantly as a husband, as a father, as a friend. So again, as always, I appreciate you for joining me for another episode of Monday Sparks, and let's get to it. So full transparency, I just want to, put it out there for you guys because I want you to understand how much mental health and emotional well-being and all those things matter to me. So, if you look back on my TikTok and you see that ever since I started that TikTok, I've been going through a custody battle. And while I experienced a ton of trauma before that situation has been heavily traumatic for me. So traumatic in fact that, when I knew the decision was already made about my daughter, about Journey, I was then able to check myself into a trauma-specific treatment center. And now, that's important, right? Because imagine not being able to get the help you need for your mental health, your emotional well-being, because you're afraid it's going to cost you custody of your child or visitation with your child or whatever the case might be. And that was very much my situation. And so I came into a trauma treatment center, and I'll be honest with you guys, even the people, there's only a few people who know I'm here until I publish this. And so why is that important? Well, it's important for a few reasons, right? It's important because it attests to the fact that even though I've been doing this for a long time, it means I still got to take care of me. I still have to take care of myself. And truth be told, I originally ended up in a trauma treatment center because I was trying to find help for my wife. And I won't go into details as to why, but it was very important for me to know that she was going to someplace that was safe. And even with the consulting work I've done, even with the knowledge and the insight I have about how this industry works, the only way I could know for sure that she would be going to a safe place is if I went first. And so that's how I ended up here. Now, that sounds like a very selfless thing, but the truth of the matter is that I needed help just as bad as she did. I just didn't see it. And I wasn't as willing to admit it. So I'll start by telling you how I got here. I got here because many years ago, I struggled with addiction. And one night I went out to celebrate being in a magazine, and I found myself very lonely. And I drank a lot that night. It was probably 8 or 9 drinks. And I woke up the next day and I'll be honest with you guys, I was like, hell yeah, let's do that again. Now, mind you, let's and suggest that there's other people. There wasn't, it was just me. And I was saying, getting drunk felt that good that I want to go right back into that life. But at this point, I've already lost custody of my daughter. I have not lived with my wife in about a year. So to me, I've lost my family. And I've lost my kids, all my kids, not just Journey. I've lost all my kids. And it was a very, very dark and dim place. And so when I woke up the next day and I said, oh yeah, let's go again, that was a huge red flag for me. I know what addiction feels like, and I know that I never want to go down that road again. And so literally 2 days later, I checked myself into a place to get help for my trauma. And that's literally how that went. So, fast forward to just very recently, I was in said trauma center, and it's a very free setting. You can't leave the property as you please, but it's not a hospital, right? Don't take necessarily any medications for depression or anything. But I know I have to work through my trauma because I know how bad it's hurting me. And so Friday night, long story short, there was a medical mishap, and I passed out. And when I passed out, I felt myself getting lightheaded, so I went to sit in a chair. And as I went to sit in a chair, I passed out, and I missed the chair. I grabbed the table to try and catch myself, and I flipped a table over on me. And I immediately wake up, and they're one of the people that find themselves in this place with me. He's, basically standing right next to me. He's like, oh my God, bro, what happened to you? What happened to you? Let me help. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I said, I'm good. I got this. He's like, bro, you're not good. And so he helps me up into a chair, and I sit down, and he runs and gets the nurse, which is on duty. And she comes, they call EMT. EMT comes out, they check my, all the vitals. And the EMT guy's like, hey man, I got to be honest with you. It's like, you'll probably be okay, but I would feel a lot better if you went and got checked out. We don't know why you passed out, so you need to get that figured out. So given the concussion I just recently had from a situation, I don't know that I was scared, but I certainly wasn't confident in where I stood. And so I listened to the advice, and I went into the hospital. And when I go into the hospital, they're obviously trying to figure out what caused me to pass out. And so they start running tests. Wait a minute, let me back up. So as I'm on the gurney being wheeled out to the ambulance, I look around me, and there's these people that are in this trauma center with me. And there's only 6 of us. So just make that clear. It's not like, hundreds of people are standing around. But as I'm looking around, I see the concern on everybody's face. I see the worry. I see the fear. And I have to be honest with you, it struck a chord in me. And I realized that I felt like I had never been around anybody who cared for me in that way. Now, in retrospect, that's not true at all. The truth is, I never allowed myself to be cared for like that. I never allowed anybody to work with me or be around me. My wife I'm 43 years old, and I think I was 41. I got blood clots at some point, and Ashley joined me at the hospital. And when she joined me at the hospital, I broke down crying, even in the hospital, because I realized it was the first time in my entire life that I had ever had anybody there to really see me through, who genuinely loved and cared about me, or at least that's the way I felt, right? And this is all in retrospect. This is not happening in the moment. This is after we've had a conversation and things have happened. But I was feeling really hurt that nobody was there for me. And so they come into the hospital on Saturday night. And so Saturday I'm in the hospital, and they come in, and they come in late Saturday, and they tell me that, hey, Mr. Stevens, you're going to have emergency surgery. I didn't even ask what it was for. I said, okay, great. I got to have emergency surgery. Wonderful. Whatever. I didn't even ask what it was for. I didn't care. They said, how's your pain? I said, I'm not in pain. What are you talking about? I was really looking at them very, very confused, because I had no idea what they were talking about, this pain I should be in. I don't know if you've ever had kidney stones, but I had kidney stones some time ago. And what happened Saturday, what I came to realize is that not only did I have kidney stones, but I had several kidney stones. And I also had a stent in my body. And that stent was encrusted with kidney stones. And again, that's a lot, right? That's a lot of pain that most people would bring to most people to their knees, and I didn't feel it. I didn't feel that physical pain. That's how much emotional pain I was in. And so, while the doctors come in, there's four doctors come in to talk to me. And as they come in and talking to me, they're, Mr. Stevens, did you know XYZ? When did this happen? When did this happen? They're asking me about my medical history. And the head doctor, I'm not going to say her name. Actually, I will say her name, is Dr. Lee. And Dr. Lee looked at me with a sense of bewilderment. She didn't understand how I could not know these things about my physical health. And to be honest with you, I can see how that would be confusing, right? Because that doesn't make sense. You clearly have went through very large experiences as far as your physicality is concerned. And yet you don't know these things. You don't know when the last time you had a blood clot was. You don't know when you got a stent in your body. You don't know when your last blood clot was. And so I looked at Dr. Lee and the other three doctors in the room. And I said, I know this may be hard to believe. I said, but the truth of the matter is that I've experienced so much trauma in the last couple of years. Those things just don't matter to me. I don't pay attention to them after they're over. I'm good, and I keep moving on about my life because I can't stop. Because if I stop, who knows what's going to happen? I don't have time to stop. And just to kind of give you a hint about like what that kind of looks like, I've had surgeries before, and nobody even knew that I had surgery. I had surgeries that I didn't tell my family about. I've had surgeries I didn't tell Journey about. And again, that was prior to Ashley and I being married. And so, I was hurting. And so Sunday, after my surgery, actually even before my surgery, I have two phones. Actually, I have three phones. But I took my primary phone and I turned it off and I threw it in my backpack. I was hurt and I was angry and I was confused and I was whatever. And I threw it in my backpack just so I didn't have to hear from or talk to anybody or answer any questions or anything. And the truth was I was running from myself. I was running from people caring for me because I was so used to not receiving that love and care that I didn't even know how to process somebody caring about me. And so, again, that sounds really weird because I talk about emotional intelligence so much, right? But that's how trauma affects you. Trauma affects you in ways that you can't really make sense of, or they don't really make sense. It's like when you really love somebody. When you really love somebody, at least for me, when I think about the love I have for my wife, there is no end, there is no limit. There's no stopping. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else in the world. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody. I don't need anybody's permission. I don't need anybody's okay. I don't need anybody's approval. I don't need anybody's anything. I know that I love my wife, and that's all that matters. And that's very hard to explain, right? And trauma's the same way. Once you go through so much of it and it just piles on top of each other, event after event after event, you just learn to navigate the waters. And you just go through it because that's what you do. And, so I think it was, Tuesday morning, my wife, Ashley, sent me a beautiful message. And she told me about a time in the past that I had hurt her, that I had treated her unkindly. She told me about a time that I dealt with her with such a harshness that it impacted how she viewed me for the next several years until just now. And I didn't even know. I had no clue. And that's not to say she didn't tell me. That's to say I didn't know. I didn't process what she had told me. In my mind, I thought I apologized for the situation and I thought we were good. But the truth is that I was so caught up in my own trauma and my own bullshit that I was the one causing hurt. I was the one causing hurt to my family. I was the one causing hurt to my children. And I have to be honest with you, that was a rude awakening of a wake-up call. Now, granted, there's a lot of other people who play in this situation, and a lot of other people did things they shouldn't have done. And I'm not going to justify or rationalize their behaviors because that's not my job. But I had the power to stop my behaviors. But I was so caught up in my own trauma, I was so caught up in my own hurt, that I didn't see that I was just creating more hurt. I stopped being a husband. I stopped being a father. I stopped being a friend. I stopped. And I say that with a great sense of remorse, because I didn't even realize I was doing it, right? I didn't even realize these things were taking place. It wasn't until my wife sent me the message and she told me how she felt and she told me how I made her feel. And she told me that she ran from me because she was afraid of me because of that one incident where I wasn't physically assaultive to her, but I was verbally very harsh on her. And she told me something in that message, and she said to me, I felt unloved. If you knew me, if you really knew me, you would know how I truly feel about my wife and about my kids. And you would know that the last thing I would ever want to do is make them feel unloved. Ever. And so I had to take a step back, and I had to re-examine and look at myself from a completely different light. And I'm glad I'm in a center for trauma, because if I didn't have the support and love that I had from the people around me, I couldn't have processed the things I processed in such a way that I did. I looked at myself and I seen so many flaws, and I seen so many mistakes, and I seen so many reactions according to what I refer to as a trauma brain that were unfair to the people I loved. And at any given point, I could have stopped. And I could have said, the loss of your first daughter would not be the same as the loss of this daughter, even if that happens. But I got to tell you, when you're hurting as bad as I was hurting, you don't see that. You don't make those connections. You're hurt, and you just want to make things better. You just want to make sense of things that don't make sense. And by doing that, I hurt everybody that I loved. Everybody that meant anything to me, I hurt. And so you might think to yourself, well, that's good that you can recognize that. Well, and that might be good. But that wasn't it. I have to make amends for the things that I've done. And while I'm all up for that challenge, and I'm all up for what I need to do to make amends to the people that matter to me, I also realize that I hurt a lot of other people in the process. I hurt my family. I hurt my mom. I hurt my dad. I hurt my siblings. I hurt my friends. I hurt everybody around me because I was so hurt that I couldn't see that I was the one hurting others. One of my favorite phrases is hurt people, hurt people. When you're hurt, you hurt others. And I've said that quote for probably next to a decade now. But until Ashley sent me that message, I didn't realize how true those words were in my own life. I had no clue. And so I've just spent the last few days processing that, right? The last few days going through that. And again, I'm thankful for the place I'm at because it gives me an opportunity to work on me and to be able to correct myself and rectify situations I made wrong or that I did wrong. And it gives me a chance to do it in a place of space of safety. where the people around me can look at me and they can acknowledge the hurt that I feel without judgment, without fear of embarrassment or guilt or even shame. Now, granted, I do feel those things. I feel guilty and ashamed. But the difference is I'm in a place that I can work through it. I'm in a place where I can let go of resentment that I have toward myself. So then I can let go of the resentment that I have toward everybody else. And I am extremely, extremely thankful for that opportunity, because this is the first time I've ever had that opportunity in my entire life. And again, I do this every day for a living. This is how I feed myself. This is how I feed my family. It's by going through this process with other people every day. So if I take care of myself, if I built businesses off of what I'm doing right now, off of healing, off of helping other people heal, it would make real good sense. It would be real logical that I would have this down pat, right? At least I thought so. What I'm learning is that I have more to learn. What I'm learning is that for every layer I uncover, for every bit of pain that I've caused, or every resentment I let go, or every layer of the onion, so to speak, that I peel back, there's another layer that I didn't have to heal from again. But this isn't about my healing. This is about the healing and the amends I have to make for those I love. Recently, I sent my wife a message, and it was right after the message she sent me as far as the way I made her feel. And I acknowledged to my wife, I said, I haven't been the husband that you married. For the last 2 months, I haven't been that guy. I've been so far in my clinical brain and trying to understand the whats and the whys and the hows and the wheres that I just completely forgot about being a husband. I completely forgot about being a father. I completely forgot about being a friend. And I can't imagine how hurtful that would be, especially to my best friend. And Ashley is without a doubt my best friend. I've come to realize that through all the trauma and things we experienced with, Journey's mom and with Ashley's ex and the courts and all these things, I came to realize that trauma is real and it really did happen. But by reacting from a traumatized version of myself, I only made everything worse. And again, that's a hard pill to swallow. And so today I was talking about, in the group setting, I was talking about what it was like and some things I've been through as far as my ex-wife was concerned. And as I told my story, I cried. I cried deeply and I cried hard. And I released parts of myself that I've never been open to acknowledging ever. And something amazing happened. Everybody that was in the setting that I was in looked at me with a sense of empathy, with a sense of compassion. And while I'm sitting here and I'm feeling ashamed and guilty about the things I'm saying, the things I allowed to happen, the things that happened, somebody gets up and he hugs me and he says, "Man, thank you for sharing, and I'm sorry." And then that meant a lot to me, and it was hard for me to even process that. And then I come to my room, and my roommate, he looks at me and he says, "Thank you for sharing that. It was inspiring and something else. I can't remember the other word he used, but and I couldn't even look at him in the eye because I still felt so ashamed of myself. I felt so ashamed of the hurt that I caused that I couldn't even look this man in the eye. And then he went on to explain to me that it was inspiring because I was able to be so vulnerable and allow these things to come out. And I understood what he meant. And I appreciated that more than I can't even put into words right now the gratitude I feel for the people around me. I can't put into words what it will mean for me to make amends to those I've hurt. But that makes sense, because trauma isn't about words, it's about experiences. And so as we're healing from the trauma, we have to experience that healing just like we experienced the trauma. And so I say all of these things that I'm sharing with you simply to say there's always room for growth. There's always room for improvement. And even if you don't feel like you owe it to anybody else to get better, to deal with those demons that you're facing, to deal with the demons that are looking you in your eye every day you look in the mirror, even if you don't owe it to anybody else, you owe it to yourself. And I'm very fortunate. I'm very, very fortunate, because I understand that not everybody can be where I'm at. And I'm not denying that. I'm not disputing that. I'm eternally grateful for being here. This situation, this has changed my life for the rest of my life. And so I am so thankful that I had the opportunity to be here. But that doesn't mean you can't start today. That doesn't mean you can't reach out to somebody. And if you don't have anybody to reach out to me. I promise you, there's no judgment here. I don't give a damn what you did. I don't give a damn what you've been through. There's no judgment here, because we all need that somebody. And my hope is that by being there for other people who might need me, or who might be able to use my shoulder as a shoulder to cry on, or an ear to hear, or a heart to heal with, or a person to grow through their trauma with, is that person will then turn into somebody else that somebody else can lean on. And we can all help each other in just that way. So the point of this whole podcast this week was simply to share that experience. And I feel like I've shared that experience, but I can't end this episode of Monday Sparks without saying something that's very important. To Ashley, if you're listening to this, I apologize that I hurt you. I apologize that you were afraid of me. I apologize for becoming the same thing I was trying to protect you from. I apologize to my children. I apologize that I failed you. I apologize that I was not the father that I needed to be for you. I apologize for not being the father that I know that I truly am. To my friends, I love you and I thank you for your continuous support. Even when you didn't know anything that was going on inside my mind or my heart. You're true friends, and I will love you forever. If you never want to talk to me again, I will still love you for the rest of my life, because you have given me safety and security in a world that I didn't know it before you. To my family, outside of Ashley and the kids, I know in the past, in my books, in the things I've written, I know that I've written things that have hurt you. I know that I've written things that have embarrassed you. I know that I wrote things that forced you to look at me in a whole different way. I can't apologize for that, because I'm not there yet. But what I can do, what I can say, is that everything I did was with the purest of intentions. It was to keep my children safe so that they would never be hurt by anybody the way I was hurt. And I hope from the deepest part of my heart that one day soon we'll be all able to let go of our resentments toward one another and to be able to heal as a family in a way that we never have. With that, I thank you for joining me for another episode of Monday Sparks. Please like, subscribe, share, and follow. I know you don't know me personally, but it means the world to me for everybody who takes the time to listen to this and to be on my journey with me. As always, be amazing, be you, and I'll catch you next Monday.